Welcome to LGBTQ2S Plus Voices in IT Celebration and Happy Pride Week. I'm Fawn Annan, CEO of ITWC. I identify as she, her, and I am so proud to be opening the first national celebration and exploration of the IT contributions of Canada's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, two-spirit community. As we begin, I want to acknowledge land where I am located is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississauga of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. As I think about the history the Land Claims Declaration surfaces, I wonder how this past 15 months of pandemic-fueled change is going to be viewed by the next generation. I wonder how the history books will look at the recent renewed focus on systemic racism, spurred on by the murder of George Floyd. And I wonder what will be written about our efforts to advance diversity and inclusion in the workforce. These are important changes that we must think about and discuss, but not today. They may serve as a backdrop to today's stories and presentations, but it's my fervent hope that today is about celebration and sharing, education, inspiring, and reminding one another that we achieve our fullest potential when we all stand together. Prior to March 2020, if any of us can remember what that was like, digital skills were already in high demand. With COVID-19 supercharging digital transformation efforts, a tech-savvy workforce is now more important than ever. Yet, many organizations are slow to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion. To paraphrase one of the key findings from a 2020 report commissioned by Canada's Public Policy Forum and the Diversity Institute, even in the face of a clear shortage of skilled technology workers, a wide variety of groups are underrepresented in ICT roles and throughout the entire ICT pipeline. It's for this reason that ITWC decided that Pride Week was the ideal time to launch an event to showcase the IT accomplishments and talents of the LGBTQ2S plus community and explore the impact of diversity. We always need things to celebrate, especially during a global pandemic. But the real value in the event is encouraging and connecting those who are underrepresented in the digital talent pool. I am proud to live in a country that has taken a leadership role in protecting the rights of LGBTQ2S plus citizens. And I am also very pleased to see our technology leaders taking steps to address systemic inequities. Well-known companies that we work with are appearing regularly on lists, like the 2020 LGBT Corporate Canadian Index or Canada's Best Diversity Employers for 2021. So, let's take the next 100 minutes to hear some inspiring stories and explore the rich mix of skills and perspectives the LGBTQ2S plus community brings to the table. We are pleased to be joined in this effort most directly by the Healthcare of Ontario Pension Plan, but also by Pride at Work, CIO Association of Canada, and corporate sponsors you will hear from a little later on. Please join me virtually in welcoming the host for this afternoon's adventure, the fabulous Cynthia Fortledge.
Maybe they're going to come up pretty soon. 2, 1, go.
Thank you, Fawn. Welcome. I'm Cynthia. I'm a former Canadian CIO and founding member of the CIO Association of Canada. I'm a queer woman with a transgender history who is pansexual. My pronouns are she and her. I'm pleased to be here for this first-of-a-kind Canadian event. It's in the middle of Pride Month, so you may have already checked in on a number of events, but we hope you'll find this one is special. Our focus for the next 100 minutes will be on the community in the IT space. We have a combination of live and pre-recorded materials, and we have lots of great speakers on panels. You'll have an opportunity to join one of two networking discussions, and we will challenge your knowledge with a fun and informative quiz sponsored by WhatServe. While most of the conference action takes place on the screen where I am now, there is lots to see on the platform. Scroll down and there's downloadable assets, recordings, or community stories, and a live social media stream. To my left, or just below me on some devices, you'll see a live chat box, and you can chat with other attendees here. Be sure to enter your name and check the terms and conditions box to participate. This is also where our interactive quiz will appear, so get ready. We will also be showcasing some interesting facts and tell you what's coming up next in our Messenger pop-up. It will appear in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And if you go to Twitter and ask a question using the hashtag PrideIT, capital P, lowercase R-I-D-E, capital I, capital T, we may share your tweet with the audience. Now, none of this would be possible without our sponsors, Microsoft, WhatServe, Okta, Beanfield, and HP. And our key collaborator, the Healthcare of Ontario Pension Plan, or HOOPP. We can't forget our other supporters, Pride at Work Canada, Queer Tech, and the CIO Association of Canada. Here to introduce our opening speaker is Corey Royden, Director, Lifecycle Marketing, Okta, a leading identity and access management company. Okta provides cloud software that helps companies manage and secure users' authentication. Take it away, Corey.
Thank you, Cynthia, and hello, everyone. My name is Corey Rowden, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. By day, I lead Okta's Lifecycle Marketing organization, and also by day, I co-chair Pride at Okta. Pride at Okta is our employee resource group, which focuses on championing for the needs of our LGBTQ+ employee population and the communities where we live, work, and serve around the world. Here at Okta, the values of diversity, inclusion, and belonging are not just important to us because they are important, but because they give us a sense of pride in our identity. From advocating for same-sex and opposite-sex fertility benefits for families of all orientations, to helping workshop allyship for the needs of underrepresented minorities, we are here with you as supporters that are on the front lines. That is actually why I'm here today with you. Events like these are important. They're important because they give a stage and a voice to the Canadian community in IT. And they are also important because we give a stage and a voice to someone who is living their true authentic self day to day, both in and outside of the workplace. I am excited to introduce one such individual to you. Lily Zhang is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist who can often be found roaming the proverbial halls of Fortune 500 companies. Lily is a regular TV commentator and also a contributor to the Harvard Business Review. As we kick off today's celebration, Lily is about to take the stage and share with us their thoughts on the state of corporate pride efforts, and also how the non-binary revolution is starting to shape the world and workplace stage. I, for one, am quite excited to hear what Lily has to say. And with that, Lily, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Lily. Love those sources of accountability information. And who doesn't love a call to revolution? The whole presentation sets a great foundation for the rest of the conference. In fact, we're going to pick up on some of the threads of those remarks with our opening panel focused on tips to build a diverse team in just a minute. But first, I want to introduce you to Lisa Gibson, Head of Marketing of Microsoft Canada. Microsoft is going to introduce us to another theme that will run throughout the conference, storytelling. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm thrilled to be here. In addition to my role as Chief of Staff and Head of Communications at Microsoft, I'm also the executive sponsor of Gleam. My pronouns are she, her. Gleam is our global LGBTQI+ employee resource group at Microsoft. It provides employees and allies with a safe community to discuss challenges, celebrate achievements, and support one another. In addition, Gleam partners with community not-for-profit organizations and hosts external networking and recruitment events. Later this afternoon, Microsoft is sponsoring one of 2 networking opportunities where you, as an audience, can join and, if you're comfortable, have a camera-on discussion. The first session, one that I'm actually hosting, is focused on how to be an ally, while the second one discusses fostering a trans-positive space. Both sessions take place at the same time. So when it's time for the session, you'll be served up the choices in Messenger. You just simply click on the discussion you want to attend. And now, I am pleased to introduce the first of 5 short stories from individuals who agreed to share an experience that is really relevant to this afternoon's theme. Storytelling forges connections among people and enables the sharing of ideas. Even in business, stories convey culture, history, and values that unite people. They help solidify relationships in ways that facts and bullet points just can't do. Shortly, Dan Armstrong, CEO and CTO of Beanfield, will speak about the moment he began living his life as his authentic self. You can also check out the Pride TV platform for additional stories from Daphne Carr, Corporate Chief Information Officer and Associate Deputy Minister with the Ontario Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, Phil Johnston, CIO of the National Research Council and President of the CIO Association of Canada, Sandeep Neer, Manager of Business Operations, Pride at Work Canada, and finally, Jose Nassif Dra, VP Global Information Technology, Centerra Gold. Now, let's hear from Dan.
So hi, I'm Dan Armstrong. I'm the CEO and CTO of Beanfield Metroconnect. For those that may not know us, we're a fiber optic-based telecom provider with operations in downtown Toronto and downtown Montreal. I'm speaking to you today because I have been using technology for a lot more than just my career. When I was a very young child, I didn't get along with my peer group like most people do. I was a weird outcast kind of kid. I grew up in a very middle-class neighborhood with lots of other, very successful white kids around that loved sports, and I just didn't fit into this group. And it was only when I stumbled across a piece of technology, which in its day was pretty revolutionary, but I'm going to date myself by talking about it. I got a CB radio, which when you think back is essentially the precursor to the internet and social media. What it did is it allowed me to talk to people that were outside of my neighborhood. And I was able to form a peer group of people, in other words, a community from people that were outside my immediate neighborhood, the ones that I wasn't connecting with. And I actually had a great experience, and I felt very supported and very vindicated by this new community that I found through these electronic means. And that, of course, in the late 80s, early 90s, gave way to something called computer bulletin board systems. Those were the direct precursor to the internet we know today. And I guess it was no accident that I stumbled across a career in internet connectivity, because I also, growing up, hitting puberty throughout all of this, realized that I didn't look at girls the same way that my peer group was. I was actually looking at boys. And I was very isolated again, and I managed to find a whole community, through the internet and through these computer bulletin boards to validate the fact that I wasn't weird, I wasn't broken. And in fact, there is a whole queer community out there, and a wonderful support network for people. Then we're not weird and we can do whatever we want in life. And without that electronic means of communication, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. It's been wonderful, and I've formed friendships and wonderful relationships all over the world. I've met most of my friends, certainly through many degrees of separation, my partner, through electronic means, and it really is fundamental to my belief that you can form communities, not just necessarily in the geographic area around you, but through many, many ways, some of them electronic. I think it's been pretty obvious that this has been a fantastic way to get us through the pandemic. As much as we all hate Zoom, I don't know what we would have done without it. But community is a very important thing. And if we can stick together and help each other and work as one, we can conquer just about anything. So that is my story and how technology has helped me get to become the gay CEO of a fairly large telecommunication company.
Thank you, Dan. Just remember, that's only one of the community stories you can hear today. When you have a chance, scroll down on the platform to see the others. Now, we're going to hear from our first panel. As Lily mentioned, it's not easy being your authentic self at work. It took me a long time to let my coworkers know who I truly was. Over 25 years, in fact. I wish I had some of the resources available to me that are available today in enlightened organizations. I hope you take away a lot from this presentation. Now, the panel is moderated by Rody Wing, a Kearney partner. He has 15 years of consulting experience driving innovation and change management at the nexus of healthcare and retail. Rody, take it away.
Thank you, Cynthia, and happy Pride. Building a diverse team makes for better solutions and results. However, it's not something that just happens on its own. My name is Rody Wing, pronouns he, him, and I'm a partner at Kearney, a global management consulting firm, where I lead our Proud Network, which is our LGBTQ2S plus ERG group. I'm joined today by a great panel to talk through and share tips on how to build diverse teams. Before we get to the questions, let's meet that panel. Jennifer, would you like to get us started?
My name is Jennifer Williams. I'm the Senior Director for Information Security for Healthcare of Ontario Pension Plan. Super thrilled to be here celebrating our LGBTQ2S plus community. And this event is really important for me in that I am a leader in IT with a very diverse team. And I understand the importance of being an ally and an advocate for change in this space.
My name is Sandeep Nair. I use the pronouns he, him, his. I'm the manager for business operations at Pride of Work Canada. And Pride of Work Canada is a leading national organization and a not-for-profit organization working, I would say, with over 170 organizations across Canada to make sure that we are supporting them to create a safe and inclusive environment for all employees, but specifically the LGBTQ2+ employees. So yes, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to be part of the conversation today.
Hi, I'm Hilary Hartley. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I have the pleasure of leading the Ontario Digital Service for the province of Ontario. I'm the Chief Digital and Data Officer, and very excited to be part of this group today. An important topic focusing on representation and helping folks see leaders like themselves all around.
My name is Ross Garrett. I lead the product organization at a startup inside Volkswagen called Volkswagen Automotive Cloud. This particular topic's important to me because I've been part of many fast-growing startup organizations, and a focus on diversity as part of our hiring process is really important. Something that we try to focus on, and something I really enjoy talking about. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Excellent. So let's dive into one of our first questions. How can companies demonstrate a clear and workable ongoing commitment to supporting and hiring diverse teams? Sandeep, maybe with the work that you've been doing, would you like to start us off on that question?
I think it's very important that all companies start by making sure that they have an accessible and inclusive policies, procedures, and guidelines to support all employees, all diverse people in the workplace. In terms of a hiring process, it's important that they make sure that their workplace is safe and inclusive before they look at hiring. Because what the organizations should understand that hiring is not in isolation. What they're trying to do is build a team, taking blocks and putting them together in a way that we want to make a strong structure. But if all the blocks are leaning on one way, as in if there is no diversity in it, then you are bound to make sure that the tower that you're building of the blocks definitely will fall. So it's important that there is diversity in team, and then also making sure that all of them can bring their whole self to work.
I really think that we have to get serious about measuring where we're at. There have been, many programs and attempts to think about the pipeline, et cetera. And I don't believe that it's a pipeline issue as much as it's, your question was, demonstrate a clear commitment to it. And I do think we have to measure where we're at, and we have to set expectations for ourselves. We need some targets. We need some goals. We need to have, plans that say we are going to try to do better, look different, be different, etc.
I'd also like to point out when being a leader in an IT environment, there is still something to be said about, the IT environment still struggling in that imbalance. And although we've made some great strides forward, I think there's still a lot of work to be done in these spaces, and specifically within our IT workspaces.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear that historically speaking, the world of IT has been dominated by cis white males, and that culture has propagated even into more modern, more dynamic, more forward-thinking, open environments as well. So it's something that we have to work to improve. And I think Hillary absolutely nailed it, right? Setting targets here is really important. Understand what the problem is, set targets for improvement, and go from there. And I think it's not really shocking, but an interesting stat from the Human Rights Campaign shows that 46% of our community are still closeted at work. And I think that speaks volumes to the amount of effort that we have to continue to put into this particular problem. I also think, even so, coming from a startup environment, having been part of many startups over the years, I think there's still a propensity for this sort of bro-tastic environment where those sorts of broy cultures get fostered and rewarded. And again, something that we have to work to improve, certainly.
Yeah, I love all the conversation we're having around kind of some of the stereotypes and how do we break those, as well as a bit about intersectionality, right? Like we all belong to multiple groups, and it's not just one part of us that shows up. And so how do we bring our whole selves, and how does the culture kind of engage? Talking about misconceptions, what are some of the misconceptions about LGBTQ2S plus people that need to be addressed in the work environments?
So in terms of the misconception about the LGBTQ2 plus people in the workplace, I think it's important for everybody in the workplace or work environment to understand that the LGBTQ2 plus people don't need special benefits or treatments. I mean, whatever the organization is doing, it's not doing for a certain section of, say, employees in the workplace. They're doing for everybody. Like, for example, if you're talking about a gender-neutral restroom, that is not just specific for the trans or gender diverse people. It is for everybody.
I can't really put my finger on misconceptions other than taking it for granted that folks may or may not be struggling with being out at work, being their full selves, talking about going home to, in my case, my wife and kids, and not letting some of those microaggressions that can happen just from people making assumptions. Being willing to speak up for people and support them.
And a lot of the times those things happen just because people on the other side don't, to your point, don't see it or don't understand it. And one of the things that has been really helpful for our organization is we've been trying to bring that to light, help people kind of take off their blinders and understand this is an experience. Like, so we're a consulting firm, and we had someone share a story about going to a client and the talk track that goes through his mind when he goes to the client, like, am I going to come out? Will they make assumptions about me? Will they treat me differently? Will I be accepted? Will I, like, all of this energy that goes into that. And so many of our colleagues, who are very supportive, allies, like, I didn't realize that people, the LGBTQ2S plus people go through that. Like, of course we do. How do you not realize that? But I mean, that's part of their privilege. That's their experience. And so, one of the things that we've been trying to do in terms of changing the culture is really have some of those, challenging conversations to open people's eyes. And we found that's made a significant difference in terms of how our allies, as well intended as they are, show up in a more positive light.
I would never want my team to feel like they would have to hide and not be able to have open conversations of that nature. Because the thing that makes my team the most successful is that they care about each other, that they build that safe, inclusive space, they share ideas, there is no judgment. And it makes them very successful. It makes them high performing. It allows them to achieve greater success. Better deliverables come out of a safe environment like that. And so I see the benefit, and to some degree, I understand the struggle. Not as much as I could understand. And that's part of being an ally, is being vulnerable to being, open and wanting to understand what that struggle is so that I can help wherever I can to make that change possible.
It's a good point as we look at recruiting talent, and it feels so nice to be seen kind of when you're going through that process. And so I'm curious, as you think about recruiting diverse teams, what are some of the strategies that you've taken within your organizations to help ensure that diversity, to help ensure that you're getting LGBTQ2S plus talent in the pipeline, but not even just in the pipeline, but Hillary, to your point, like through the process and hired and then connected to the organization?
Representation matters, and people, I think, respond to seeing and hearing from folks, and knowing that when they join this organization, there's going to be other folks like them. So trying to be, again, as visible and vocal as possible with myself and with other folks who are out, so that we can show up to the networking days that we host, or other places where we can show folks that this is a culture where you will be respected, you will be valued, and where if you choose to be, you can be out and bring your whole self to work.
If I could maybe add there, I think that concept of culture is really important. During the interview process, there's almost always the culture interview where we go ask the candidate, are they going to be a good cultural fit for our business? Which always has seemed a little bit backwards to me. I think that we should be doing a much better job of explaining the culture that we've created, so that people can feel attached to that.
Yeah, it's a great point, Ross. And I think it brings us to that next step in that journey, right? Which is the kind of interview process and how they actually get not just to the interview, but through the interview and get the offer, right? And what do we need to do there to make sure our systems don't reject the diversity?
I think it's also important for us to make sure that while implementing hiring best practices, it is also important that the recruiters make sure that, they are being inclusive in terms of their interviewing process as well, starting from the job description to how the interview is conducted. Like usually we see job descriptions where they have he/she for when they want to talk about individual. We have to use a gender neutral pronoun there where they use they, because then we are inclusive of everybody.
At the Ontario Digital Service, we also have created essentially a bit of a mini onboarding program, I suppose, for anyone who is going to be a part of the recruiting and hiring process. So whether you're doing a phone screen or sitting on a panel or you're the hiring manager, anyone that's a part of our hiring process now goes through unconscious bias training. And we've pieced it together ourselves, and it's reading materials and videos, but it's something that I think makes a huge difference and does set some of those expectations, like Sandeep just talked about.
Thank you, panel, for the excellent conversation and suggestions. I think we really covered the full breadth of what it takes to kind of build those diverse teams, right? From recruitment to the selection process, to the offer, to the most important part we spend most of our conversation, which is around building that culture that can actually attract and retain and grow diverse talent. So thank you so much for your time. And with that, I'll turn the cyber podium back to you, Cynthia.
Wasn't that a great panel? I bet you were expecting Cynthia, weren't you? She'll be back after this next presentation. I'm Dan Armstrong, and you heard a bit of my story a few minutes ago. Beanfield is pleased to be a sponsor of this event. We're about an hour in, and there's so much to talk about. So we're going to give you that opportunity in just a moment, but first, we're going to hear from QueerTech co-founders Nufel Testaoni and Andy Saldana. QueerTech is a Montreal-based organization charged with empowering LGBTQ2S+ people in the tech sector to increase access to and representation by fostering learning, mentorship, and growth. Take it away, Nufel and Andy.
Hi, I'm Nufel, co-founder at QueerTech.
Hi, I'm Andy Saldana, also co-founder at QueerTech.
So QueerTech is a nonprofit based in Montreal, and our mission is to queer the tech ecosystem. Now, that really means is that we are looking to increase LGBTQ representation in tech. We're looking to break down the barriers that LGBTQ people are facing to get into the tech industries, also creating spaces between our community and partners to connect and build this nationwide communities where they can feel supported and empowered. And so, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So we all know that there is a huge economical and social disparities between the queer community and the heterosexual community, right? So even globally, 70% of UN states are still criminalizing consensual same-sex. And even in Canada, where we are at the forefront of human rights, still 50% or 1 out of 2 LGBTQ people are still in the closet at work.
Yeah, so when we look at these statistics, why 1 out of 2 people are still in the closet at work, we have to look at the experiences at the workplace. One report by the Canadian Centre for Diversity found that 30% of LGBTQ employees in Canada report experiencing discrimination in the workplace, and that's compared to only 3% of their heterosexual counterparts. And when we look at a 2019 LinkedIn survey, showed that 70% of LGBTQ professionals believe they have no senior LGBTQ leaders to look up to. And when you look at economic crises like COVID, you can see that it disproportionately impacts the LGBTQ and other underrepresented groups in a negative way. These are a few statistics that speak to the economic and social gaps that exist. And when we look at the tech ecosystem in Canada, we would assume that the culture and environments would fare a bit better, but there's very little data about the LGBT tech workforce in the tech ecosystem in Canada. And so again, just to reiterate, these statistics really show that there's a lack of representation at higher levels, and then increased feelings of discrimination.
So our focus as an organization is we are looking to create access for LGBTQ communities. So these are people who are outside on tech and would like to get in tech and get a tech job. The second group is we're looking at supporting people, LGBTQ people who are already in tech, and we wanted them to grow into leaders and executive roles. And then the third group we're looking to serve is entrepreneurs. So we want to foster entrepreneurship within the community. And so these are people who are looking to launch tech businesses or tech-enabled businesses.
And at Queer Tech, we have very ambitious goals. When we look at the environment overall, it's said that 2 to 12% of the total population identify as LGBTQ. Our goal is to exceed that standard within the tech industry, with the goal of 20% of the total tech workforce being LGBTQ, 70% of that being in highly technical roles, and 30% in business/support positions. We also have a goal of 5% LGBTQ leadership within the tech industry, and 15% of the total VC capital invested into queer-founded companies. Today, those numbers fall less than 1% for many of those categories. And the way that we're working to do that is through our programs. Currently, we have 4 programs underway, with the 5th scheduled for launch in 2022.
Yeah, so QT Connect is a program that we launched last year, and it's about telling queer stories in tech. This is a live stream we do every other Thursday, and we want to tell more queer stories, but also showcase more role models for the community to be inspired and motivated, and for LGBTQ people to join the tech industry.
Yeah, and then our second program, Careers, is our workforce development program to create a space for our community and partners to connect through job fairs and our job board. We had our first one in April, and our second job fair is happening in October. Then our third program is a hackathon, Pride Hacks. And we create tech solutions for local nonprofits serving LGBTQ population. It brings together our community and our partners in a virtual event Canada-wide to celebrate Pride and provide a great opportunity to give back. This will be our 5th year doing this event, and this year it's a 2-day event happening in August, timed with Pride Montreal.
And then the fourth initiative we have is our research program. So as you've seen, there is a huge lack of data for LGBTQ in tech, and really for us to build efficient programs and also dictate policies for companies in the future, we want to be understanding the experiences of LGBTQ people in tech. So we're conducting a research project this year where we're looking to launch a report, a D&I report that will be focused on queer experiences in tech. And the 5th program is Queerpreneurs, is our queer entrepreneurship program that is looking to empower and also support LGBTQ people to launch tech businesses and tech-enabled businesses.
So thank you so much for the time today, and we hope that you join us in queering the tech ecosystem. Again, my name is Andy Saldana.
And I'm Naufal Testowny, and really excited to see all of you on our platform. You can join us on queertech.org by either supporting the organization or signing up for our newsletter.
Thank you.
I'm back. Thanks, Naufal and Andy. We are getting so many lessons here. Be visible and vocal so others can see there are people like themselves in the organization. Teams that are willing to have the challenging conversations perform better. The importance of setting goals for diverse leadership in tech companies and attracting capital to LGBTQ2S plus organizations. Oh, wonderful. Now it's your opportunity to do a little talking. We have 2 networking sessions you can join. You're invited to share your thoughts or simply listen to what others have to say. In Roundtable Discussion Room 1, there will be a discussion around being an ally. It will kick off with a short discussion between Lisa Gibson, Microsoft Canada's Head of Communications, Nikki Pitt, Learning and Development Manager, HOOPP, and Rody Wing, Partner at Kearney, and then open up for cameras on discussion or use of the chat for those who are disinclined to be on screen. In Roundtable Discussion Room 2, the discussion is going to be around fostering a trans-positive space. The discussion leaders will be Rebecca Hooton, Specialist Education and Training, the 519, Brittany Martin, Senior Systems Developer, HOOPP, Curtis Dupre, Lead Data Security and Awareness, HOOPP, and Zoe Knox, VP of Engineering, the OpenNMS Group. Your choices are in the messenger. Click the one that you're interested in attending. If you leave a discussion room before the end, you may need to return to the platform via a link on your email ticket. If you stay to the end, the room will simply disappear and you'll be back here with me. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes for a live quiz sponsored by WhatServe. Weren't those great discussions? A sign of a great session is there's still lots to say when the session's over. Hopefully, this is just the beginning of conversations that will carry on beyond this conference and Pride Month. Now is our time for our quiz, sponsored by WhatServe. WhatServe is an IT solutions provider that helps clients digitally transform their business through cloud technologies and managed service. Its unique approach to planning, migration, and management, plus premium support, enables its global customers to focus on their core business. Now, we want you to focus on our quiz. Participating is easy. The question will appear on the right-hand side of the screen or below the window where I am right now, if you are on a mobile device. Now, if you're on full screen mode, you won't see it. So take yourself out of full screen and play along. It'll be fun. If you haven't already entered your name and accepted the terms on the chat box, please do so now so that you can participate in our quiz. Are you ready to get clicking? We'll see the results live, so you'll be able to compare yourselves to your colleagues in the audience. So let's start with a test question. LGBTQ2S plus employees that are out at work are psychologically healthier. A, true, B, false. The answer's A, true. Studies show that employees not out at work report higher levels of stress, more discomfort when socializing, and lower self-esteem. That said, employers with LGBT supportive policies against discrimination may lower the risk of this distress. Okay. Question 1. Among LGBTQ2S plus employees, having supportive policies and workplace atmosphere are linked to A, greater job commitment, B, increased job satisfaction, C, improved health outcomes, and D, all of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. Supportive policies and workplace atmosphere are also linked to less discrimination against LGBTQ2S plus employees and more openness about being LGBT. Okay, question 2. When was gender identity and gender expression added as protected grounds to the Canadian Human Rights Act? Was it A, in 2015, B, in 2012, C, in 2016, or D, in 2018? Well, if you know me, you know the answer is C. Bill C-16 in 2016. The enactment amended the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. Now, provinces also added this to their own codes at different times. Ontario, for example, added this protection in 2012. Question 3. In LGBTQ2S plus terminology, what does the term dead naming mean? Is it A, an insult used for an LGBTQ2S plus person? Is it B, speaking ill of the dead? C, calling a transgender person by their birth name? Or D, when a transgender person creates a new name? The answer is C, calling a transgender person by their birth name. Dead naming occurs when someone, intentionally or not, refers to a person who's transgender by the name they did use before they transitioned. You may also hear it described as referring to someone by their birth name or their given name. Question number 4. An inclusive tech workplace requires an understanding of the groups comprising the LGBTQ2S plus community. What does two-spirited mean? Is it A, a person who identifies as having both a masculine and feminine spirit? B, a term used by some Indigenous people to describe their sexual, gender, and/or spiritual identity? Or C, may encompass same-sex attraction and a wide variety of gender variants? Or D, all of the above? The answer is D, all of the above. If you're comfortable that you understand two-spirited, another term you might want to learn about is intersectionality. It's the complex, cumulative way in which the effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism, combine, overlap, or intersect in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. Last question, number 5. Despite some hard work, organizations need to do more to create inclusive workspaces, including A, focus on culture change in order to improve employees' interactions with colleagues, direct managers, and leadership? Or is it B, invest in new tools in order to create organization-wide accountability? Or is it C, develop equitable HR policies and benefits? Or is it D, all of the above? The answer is D, all of the above. To engage a new generation of workers and consumers, many whom choose products based on diversity and inclusion, Companies must move beyond public gestures to create a more positive work experience, especially in the coronavirus era, where isolation risks are far greater. Making it psychologically safe for the community to be out at work should be a priority. Well, that was a lot of fun. Now, we're going to hear from the leaders at the top of their fields in IT who have dealt with workplace challenges. They will share stories that can help others who are struggling with their situations in the workplace. I turn the virtual stage over to IT World Canada CIO, Jim Love, who will get his panelists to introduce themselves. Jim?
So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for participating in this. I've been looking forward to this. My name is Jim Love. I'm pronouns he, him. I'm the CIO of IT World Canada. And, one of the things I was most grateful for when my daughter came out to us at age 14 was we were part of a rich community. And we had lots of friends who could share their life experience with her and with us. So when the opportunity came to host this panel, I was honored. That's all I can say, and honored to have such a distinguished group who are willing not to share only their professional lives, but their personal experiences as well. So welcome to all four of you. I'm just going to start. Jose, would you like to start just by introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Jose Nasifdra. I'm actually recording today from Buenos Aires. I had to fly to Argentina last week. I'm the VP of IT within Centerra Gold. And anyway, I'm very happy to be here.
I'm Zoe Knox. I'm the Vice President of Engineering for the OpenNMS group. We make open source network monitoring software. And most of my job is, herding all of the cats in generally the right direction, which is the favorite part. I live in Ottawa, and I'm happy to be here.
Rachel?
Yeah, hi, my name is Rachel Clark. I'm a Senior Information Security Analyst with TD Bank Group. Most of my job every day is writing machine learning code for cybersecurity analytics, and it's just a real pleasure to be here today.
My name is Sachin Agarwal. I'm the CEO of Think Research. We're a digital health company. We recently went public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the Venture Exchange, just a few months ago, and pleased to be here.
We don't have anywhere near enough time. I'm already listening to all the places you're coming from and going, there's so many questions I want to ask you about work and other stuff too. But so we'll do this panel, but we're gonna have to get this group back together again. I want to start out with some of the milestones of your career, and I think and obviously in celebration of Pride, we're talking about coming out in there. Was there particular milestones in your coming out journey that you'd like to highlight or talk about?
I started in law, and in law, it's a relatively welcoming part of the corporate community to be out. So I started as an out man, and so I haven't had milestones within my career. In fact, my milestones are yet to come. Now, as the CEO of a public company, I've got milestones coming up with my partner and I being engaged now, having a child on the way, doing that as a gay couple. In the corporate community, that's going to be exciting. So I think my major ones are yet to come.
Cool. Yeah. Zoe?
I've been relatively fortunate as well in that, my whole coming out transition has been really smooth, and people generally have been really accepting and open, which I think is really a Canadian strength in some ways. When I came out, they actually threw me a party at work, which was really fun. Another big milestone that I like to honor is when I got my first job as an openly queer woman, and subsequently the promotion to VP. So those are the big milestones, I think, so far for me.
Jose?
I started my career with ExxonMobil. I was with them for a few years, and I was not out, but I was not out either. So that was here in Buenos Aires, and I lived, quite freely here. Fortunately, Argentina is quite open, but it was still that not being out was always made some noise, in the back of my mind. And so once I decided to move to North America, I decided to just be very straightforward and talk as open as possible and be like, hey, I can't start next week because like I'm getting married and my husband and I X. And so as natural and as open as possible, but I wanted to make sure that I was coming into a company that was completely accepting.
Rachel.
Yeah, so for me, the experience was a little bit different. Prior to coming out, I had some pretty senior roles, including C-suite roles in technology, running some pretty large IT departments. And my idea was that I would come out during a period of transition, not just for myself, of course, but also in the workplace. So between jobs, I thought it would be easier to just not come out in the workplace and come out between jobs. And of course, at that time I had 20 years of a really great IT career and saying, of course, I'm going to come out and people are just going to accept me. And really what happened is I came out and I wasn't accepted. And, I spent really an 18-month period of having no income at all. And so kind of went through this whole stage of losing everything and having to start my career over again, and it's been difficult to navigate, starting from the beginning and working through that again. And, but all those skills I had, I still had all of those skills. So I think it's changing and it's getting better. I mean, Zoe's story is really heartwarming for me. I love that. But, we also need to know that it hasn't always been this way, and rebuilding a career is difficult for some trans people, and I really want to celebrate what's happening to Zoe and move forward with that.
Yeah, we hope we can get to a place where there'll only be happy stories. Is there any advice that you would give to people who are in the process of coming out or have not yet, or is there any thing that you would want to say to them?
I had the same fears that, what happened to Rachel would be my story as well, right? That I would lose the job, that, I would lose all my contacts and have to start over. Thankfully, that's not what happened. But I guess the advice I can give to people is know your value. Remember that you are the same person who did all these great things in the past. And people will definitely be surprised when you come out to them. Maybe uncomfortable because you're shifting a lot of unconscious assumptions that they've made about you over the years, right? And they are going to have to kind of reframe that stuff in their own mind. But give it time, keep being awesome. And I think most people generally get over it and will be accepting and supportive.
Satya, do you want to? I thought you looked like you were agreeing and there nodding.
People have to go through their own journey. So number one, make sure you take care of your own mental health. Right. Do it at a time when you're ready to do it. Try to have friends or allies outside of the workplace that you can confide in, that you can speak to about the process. And then number three, try to see if you can find some allies in the workplace. Right. Some folks that you're comfortable with or that will be accepting.
Jose?
It's important to be true to yourself and respect that, and just go to places where you're adding value as a whole, not as a half. Leaving part of who you are at home doesn't work ultimately. Somehow it always just creates internally things like kind of anxiety and depression and everything else that you don't really want to go down that path. But I know that it's easier said than done sometimes. But that would be my view, I guess.
Rachel, anything to add to that? Or
people have come out to me and asked for that advice is, take advantage of every single thing you can to be supported through that process, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. And, the more support you have, the better off you'll be.
And even those of us who want to be great allies and great friends, we stumble too. A friend of mine called me and his best friend came out to him as a trans woman, and he called me to say, "What do I say or do?" And I said, "Ask her." And that's what I want to do for all of you is to ask you, what is the advice you'd give to people who want to be your friend and want to be supportive? What can we do?
I think in terms of the trans community, it's really important for people to know that they really have to do the work. Part of that is doing some research into what trans experiences are like. And then, when you come to me with this knowledge and having a basic understanding of the trans community, then I'm happy to sit down and tell you in other ways that you can be an ally to me. And, it starts with support and listening.
Your work colleague, your now out work colleague, has to keep coming out, because I'll go into a banking relationship or a banking meeting or a third party supplier or any lunch or dinner meet, whatever the case may be, and I'll get asked about my am I married, what's her name, and so on and so forth. I've got to come out again and again and again and again and again. A piece of advice is to recognize and support us through that, laughing with us every time we have to do it, being supportive every time we have to do it, and just recognizing that it doesn't stop for us.
I have a fun story. I remember going to lunch with a software company, pretty large software company. They are asking why did you come here? And then I go and I'm like, well, so my husband and I, X, and one of the guys anyways, goes like, you mean your wife? And it's all good. Of course, I'm Argentinian. I speak Spanish as my first language, but I think I can follow a pretty good conversation in English. So if I meant husband, that's exactly what I meant, right? And so I called him out on it. I was like, no, I mean husband. And anyway, it resonated so much with this company that ultimately they even brought it in their global sales speech to talk about what had happened. So not to do it again, do not correct your customers, right? So I thought that was funny.
A good lesson in all, do not correct your customer. Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
I think as an ally, you're often in situations with people who will say things around you that they would never say around us. If you want to be a good ally, when you hear somebody saying homophobic or transphobic or just generally anything nasty, put a stop to it. That's how you can be a good ally.
What things have people done that have really worked well in terms of helping you in your journey, helping you come out, or helping support you?
For a workplace in general, I think it's important that you put diversity at the foundation. You've got to make it a part of your hiring strategy. You got to make it clear to everybody in the organization the importance of diversity and the fact that you're hiring on the basis of it. That means that everybody who is a part of the hiring process explicitly needs to consider that. That helps people who are not out to feel comfortable during the hiring process, but it also makes it clear to those who already work at the organization that this is something that is a priority for us.
I felt incredibly supported because, there's been a focus put on the trans community in my workplace. And, we were one of the very first organizations who gave extended benefits medically for trans people. And that's really, really important, that, organizations place the focus on those who have the biggest need that represent the least amount of people. I, really believe that that's what any diversity initiative should do is, the number of trans people is irrelevant to doing what's right and doing what's really good for the community.
Thinking about what Sachin had said about the diversity piece. And I think that ultimately it's important to understand that first is doing what is right, but at the same time, for companies, it's really affecting the bottom line. I think diversity, and not just from an LGBTQ, it's also about women, age, race, First Nations, and everything else. Is really bringing diversity of thought. And so the way that you tackle issues within the organization, ultimately, even a good business to be diverse.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, diversity of people, diversity of opinions, diversity of ideas, and just having a human workplace. It was the 1990s. I was working for Ernst & Young, and my Aboriginal family, and one of the partners made a joke about Aboriginals. And I walked out of the meeting. I thought I'd lost my job. And one of the partners came at me and said, just let us handle this. This should never have happened. And I think that's something we all in a workplace, for everyone, need to be able to reach out and say, this isn't happening here.
My perspective is that, culture comes from the top, right? It's set by leadership. I really like what Sachin said about having diversity and inclusion as a foundation of the company, right? I think that's really important to really set that expectation among everyone. Some of the things I think that have worked really well in my experience are, inclusive language is really important. It's not just, talking the talk when you go out and celebrate Pride Month and put up rainbow flags around the company, but like really making those fundamental changes to things like forms that don't just say M or F. That when you end meetings, you're not just saying thank you, ladies and gentlemen, stuff like that. There's all these very small things, asking people's pronouns before you assume. It's really that really fundamental small stuff, everyday stuff that I think makes an environment really inclusive for everyone.
It's also important to have people that you can look up to. A few people that can be highlighted in the organization who are out, who are allies and who are visible, makes it easier for others who may not be out or who may be on that journey. So certainly encourage every workplace to do so if they have someone who is willing to be that shining light for others.
Thank you so much. This has been great. I once again, I'm honored, and I'm so glad you've shared your time with us. And happy Pride Month and happy lives to all of you.
Yeah, happy Pride.
Thanks very much. Happy Pride.
What a great discussion. Coming out at work is a big deal. As the panelists said, and I know personally, people have to go through their own journeys. And you don't come out just once and it's done. You have to keep coming out over and over again. I lost count after hundreds and hundreds of experiences. That was an amazing way to wrap up the content part of the day. Unfortunately, though, our 100 minutes are up. There is still an opportunity to join us in a minute for some unstructured conversation at the after party. But I need to say some thank yous. Thanks to our sponsors, Microsoft, Okta, Beanfield, WhatServe, and HP. Thanks to HOOPP for working with IT World Canada to bring this idea to fruition. Thanks to Pride at Work Canada, the CIO Association of Canada, and Queer Tech. Please complete the survey you will receive following the event. Look for stories from today's event at the IT World Canada network of publications, or come back to the platform for another look at the videos. And please be sure to check out the community stories. They are all very compelling. If you have comments or ideas for other tech events for the community, send a note to pride@itwc.ca. That's pride@itwc.ca. Now, if you want to join me and some of the other participants in today's celebration for some casual conversation, please feel free to join us in the post-event networking room. The link is in the messenger. For those of you that have to push on to another meeting, on behalf of IT World Canada and myself, Cynthia Fortledge, I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Be safe, protect your mental health, and happy Pride.